Okay, so today's topic that we shall discuss is about the cosmic universal beloved and its singularity or oneness. Now, we think that this question is actually important because, you know, a very much a walked path on planet Earth is the path of devotion, or in other words, bhakti yoga. And there are some fundamental things to understand about it and how devotion became a bit misfunctioning or non-functioning on planet Earth, and we would love to shed some light on this topic. So to demonstrate this issue, let's take a devotee and two lifetimes of this devotee. This can be any kind of devotee. We imagine a devotee in our mind. And let's suppose that this devotee is very much devoted to a past master, and we will assume that this devotee in this incarnation is a devotee of Gautama Siddhartha Buddha, because we say that this Gautama Siddhartha Buddha was an enlightened master, a divine incarnation, if you wish. We also say that if you devote yourself to something which has already attained absolute purity and absolute non-duality, and you become so associated with that being, that entity, at some point you will feel that much oneness with that entity that eventually you realize the oneness as well through that form, that manifested reality of the omnipresent spirit. So we say that in this lifetime, this devotee is devoted to Buddha. So he lives his life very much concentrated on, being very madly in love, divine love with this master Buddha. And, he makes his offerings and sacrifices to this master, and he just gives all his heart, all his everything to this master, and he goes beyond pride and everything, and he just really feels that the Buddha becomes his own self. Because we know that the self is the highest goal that can be attained, and if the self is attained by a person, being devoted to that person, what we mean by a person, a form, then you will attain the self as well if your means of devotion are correctly done. Now let's say that this devotee dies and has not fulfilled absolute liberation, so he goes to the next incarnation, and let's assume that this devotee now becomes a great devotee of the avatar from the past, from 5,000 years ago, Krishna. So again, he becomes madly in love with this incarnation, this divine entity, and he gives all his heart, all his everything to this incarnation, and this incarnation becomes all that is for this devotee. So the rest of the devotee's life is no longer important. This is the important aspect we have to look at. So we say that at some point in the seeking of the self, he becomes devoted to the Buddha and gives everything to the Buddha, and next time he does it to Krishna, or it can be any kind of master you want. It was just for the sake of presentation that we picked these two masters. So the conclusion is that he devoted himself to the self. And it means that if you can be illuminated, if you can be liberated through devotion to the Buddha, and then to a devotion to Rama, Krishna, any kind of master you would like, and we have actually proof from experience from the past that there have been devotees of masters who got liberated through that intense love to that master, we say that it's possible either way to get there, because they were so madly in love with that master the masters became their cosmic beloveds. So the conclusion is that in reality, the Buddha and the Krishna both became the self of that person, of that devotee. And now the question is, how is it possible that two selves became one self of a person? And of course, it's contradictory to think that you have two selves. In reality, there's only one self, what you call your higher self or soul, if you would like. So the conclusion is that the Buddha, the entity of the Buddha and the entity, absolute entity of Krishna cannot be two different things. Had they been two different things, they couldn't lead to the same path, to the same goal. And experience shows that the same goal has been reached by devotion to any kind of two historically different masters, but the goal was the same. So this is what we mean by the oneness of the self, that no matter what kind of path you take, no matter the means of this, because even those people who, don't pick a deity, a divine entity as their object of devotion, for example, Buddhists, not Buddha devotees, but Buddhists themselves, don't take any divine entity, not even the Buddha, as the goal of their path. Rather, they still have devotion because they have a devotion to their own path of liberation. So any kind of path you walk and you are dedicated to liberation and absolute freedom, you have, in a way or in another, you have devotion, and that's for sure. And this is why actually we had bhakti movements, like devotion movements all around in the history, because it has been seen that devotion is the easiest and quickest way to attain final perfection. And now another important thing that we have to speak about, why started devotion be more misused than used for good. Now is the simple thing that a lot of churches did with their deity is to say that the deity is different from anything else. If we think about, let's say, Krishna, he himself says that he is the beginning and he is the end, which means that everything that exists is part of them. So there is no difference between them and anything else. This is the indifference they speak about, because a real master in the past, gurus and yogis, have seen themselves in everything and everything in themselves. So they did not see difference between oneself and anything else. So for them, there have never been others. It was the spirit beyond creation that perceived itself in many forms, like me and you, because for a master, there is no me and there is no you, there is only spirit that became me, this imaginary me and the imaginary you, because in reality, we don't lose our identity in spirit. The soul is always one with spirit and is non-different from it. So thinking that a deity or any kind of divine being or any kind of thing on the planet is different from another is the foundation, is the root why devotion became so suppressed, so forced, because people lost the real meaning. Even if you look at Yeshua, or as they call it at the West, Jesus, he himself said, I am the Alpha and Omega. It means the beginning and the end. So everything that is from the beginning to the end was part of him. This is why we look up and bow down to these masters, not because they said that they are great, but because they showed others how great they can be. So in reality, there is no difference between Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, Ram, or any kind of master, because what they expressed was their oneness with everything, and the joy that comes from this oneness, that was the priority in their lives. This is what they showed to people. And all the miracles, people say, oh, they made miracles, this is why they were so great. But now, not really. Because for them, miracles were just secondary. The most important thing for them was the joy that they got from the union with Spirit, whether call it father or mother or friends, divine friend or divine guru, doesn't matter. They were joyful in their union with Spirit, and they attained the highest goal by this union. So this is why they attain the self, in reality, the absolute self without dualities. And because they attain this self, we worship them, because we know that they are our innermost self, and they are non-different from each other. They were always the one and the same, the different manifestations of the same reality. And this is me, and this is you as well. And this is our task, to attain this unity, the communion with Spirit, any kind of form. Because the matter of fact is that you can devote yourself to a single piece of rock or a single part of sand, and you can still be liberated if you realize what omnipresence means. Omnipresence means all-inclusive, because we always said that the divine is omnipresent, but throughout the ages, this me say of omnipresence doesn't say that much, but in reality what it means is that it's all-inclusive. It's all that is. You cannot deny it because it's still there. It is there to be. Not, it doesn't have a point of existence. It just is to be. And how great is existence when you go beyond qualities and you just say, I am. And you don't have to continue this sentence with any kind of conclusion, because the conclusion is that you are. So this is the union of the self, and we have touched another interesting topic, as for the masters, there has never been any other than themselves, because they saw Spirit as prevailing in all creation and beyond that. And I think that it's very important to think about this, us and the others, because this is one another major issue on the planet, that we think that there is us and there is the others. But if we think about this really much, and we say that the divine, the self, became all creation, for sure there cannot be difference. And let us prove this statement. Beyond the testimony of masters being one with everything, we can have something that is now in front of us, and we can experience it. If we think about existence as existence itself, or consciousness if you wish, but we feel that existence is an easier example to understand. If we think about existence, I am existence, you are existence, the table is an existence, the bird is existent. If we think about fire, what do we know about fire? We know two things about it. Number one, it burns itself, it burns everything that is different from itself. And number two, it doesn't burn itself. So everything that is different from fire is going to perish under the pressure of fire, and everything that is fire itself is not going to be burned by itself. So the same way, if I am existent and you are existent, and we can prove this by the simple experience of being able to express that I exist, and going on the example of the fire, that which is existent cannot be different from that which is existent. They cannot be two different existences. They are part of the same big fire, the same big union, the same big self. So, there are sometimes hard times in people's life, then there's something cruel done to them, and some people say, you must forgive your enemies. But if you think really about it, whom can you forgive? Why do you even have to forgive somebody if you are so much in love, madly in love with life, that you don't see anything but an expanded yourself, an expanded you in all creation? Whatever crazy things might go on in the life of that small form that we call you or me, in reality it's the expanded spirit beyond creation that exists and witnesses all that happens. So there is nobody else to whom you could forgive, and there is no forgiveness either, because you are so madly in love with life that there is nothing to be forgiven. You cannot forgive existence. Existence is, if you accept, if you deny, it is just there untouched by changes of the world. So in this way, they say love others, but in reality, these others are spirit, and the correct way to say it is to say to love spirit. And sometimes we then say, see, don't do anything to others that you wouldn't like to be done to yourself. And this saying, do unto others what you would like to be done unto yourself, is this basic union of everything, that you are in reality a soul, not a body, and the soul is ever present, omnipresent, and ever free in the spirit beyond creation, and therefore it expands to the extent of spirit, which is omnipresence. So there's nobody to love besides spirit that you are, and it's not something egoistic because you love behind qualities. You just love existence as it is, and because you are existent too, you are just in love with yourself and then with everything that is, and you don't make differences between you and yourself, because you are, just imagine such a great joy within that you don't even care about questions of who I am and who I am not, because in that great joy, all these questions dissolve, because that joy is the only thing that you are. And if you identify yourself with joy and not happiness, because happiness is with an object, and this is the difference between happiness and joy. Happiness has an object. I am happy because of something. But if you are joyful, you cannot say I'm joyful because. Joyful cannot be because of something. Happiness can be, joyful cannot. And if you identify yourself with joy itself, it has no object. You can say that you are the object of joy, but it is illogical to say that I am the object of my own joy. No, joy is just there, and you become one with that joy. And if you become one with that joy, you don't care about you and others, because everything just dissolves into this ocean of existence, and all these entities, me and you, become just drops in the ocean. And if you think about it, the drop in the ocean is just a miniature form. The drop is a miniature of the ocean, and the ocean is created by all those drops. So the ocean couldn't be without the drops, and the drops couldn't be without the ocean. So in this oneness, you could start to write up all the connections between millions and millions of drops in the ocean. You could say drop one, drop two, drop million, then you could start to write up what kind of relation is between drop one and drop million. But in reality, in the ocean, there are no connections, there are no relations between drops and drops, because the ocean moves in its own singularity, and that which is singular cannot have relation between one self and oneself. It is just there in a singular reality, and all the small particles in the ocean are actually expanded ocean. And for example, there are some writings that, write how, for example, there's this great quote from the Bible, which is very much misunderstood, which says that the Father created the universe through the Christ. And now we say that, oh, the Father created everything through Jesus. No. Jesus indeed was a Christ, but he wasn't the only Christ, because there have been other Christs, such as the apostles. Some of the apostles really became Christs at the end of their lives, or other masters, Yoginanda or Ramakrishna. They all were Christs of their times and of all times in reality. So it means that because the small drop in the ocean is non-different from the ocean, it is so united that actually the creation comes through as the ocean becomes a drop and the drop becomes a human being, but the human being shall not forget that it is in reality the drop itself, which is in reality the ocean itself. So spirit is non-different from the soul, because the spirit beyond creation became the soul, and then the soul became the human being, but the human being shall not forget that it is a soul, and that the soul is in fact the spirit itself. And there is this great saying that prevails in all the Bible, in all the Bhagavad Gita, in all the Holy Scriptures. You have this saying, I am he, or I am she, or I am it, or that you are. Why is this so? Because all the masters realize that God, or the divine, is the only existing reality. So they became one with that which is the only one. And this is why we say that they are gods. But you know, it's much more adequate to say that they are spirits, because the God word has been misunderstood. And if we say spirit, it doesn't bring any secondary meaning to it. They were indeed spirits, and this is why we bow down to them, because they were spirits. And this is why they were here, to show how we are spirit too, that we are not different from them. This is the greatness of the masters. And many times, for example, Jesus and Krishna say, I am he, or I am she, or I am it. It is the simple saying that I am one with everything. And the reason why they don't say, I am God, and no liberated master will ever say, I am God himself, is because the small ego is not spirit, and because this ego is just a truffle, it is just a trifle, it is just a joke. In reality, it's just omnipresent spirit that is there. And even the small I, when we refer to the small I, is also spirit. So this is when the masters say, I am he, even though we know what he is, they say, I am he. Even me is he, because the ocean is he, the sun is he, or she, as you desire. The birds are spirit, everything is spirit. And if everything is spirit, I myself, just because I am conscious of my own existence, it doesn't mean that I have to be different from existence itself. So just destroying that the outermost layer, or the innermost layer of ignorance, thinking that I am different from anything else, you will say that me and the mother are one, because there's only one big happening called spirit. And everything that is included in spirit that exists is non-different from spirit itself. So this is the great union all the masters spoke about, and all the miracles came out of this union. And this is why they were so compassionate, because they didn't have somebody else to forgive. They didn't have to go beyond all these, because they already felt one with everything. They said that the father or the mother is everything, and I, as the son of God, which we all are in reality, are non-different, because we are so much in love with the divine that we even forgot our identity in that divine oneness. So shall it be.